Hello there, folks. Thank you so much for showing up today for this class that the university is hosting this semester. And I'm just so excited to teach this to you, to chart the course from Knuckles all the way to his wonderful evolution into K'nox. Let's jump right into it. Now, the primary focus of this lecture will be the works of this man, Ken Penders. And Ken Penders, during his tenure with Archie Comics, created many concepts and ideas for the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book series, but more importantly, he helmed the Knuckles the Echydnya comic book series. And the stories and ideas contained therein will make up the bulk of today's lecture material. So let's dive headfirst into that, shall we? All right. Now I want to begin by showing you this. This is a family tree of all the echidnas we're going to encounter on this journey. And I know looking at that, you might think, oh, that's sure a lot of echidnas. But I want to assure you that by the end of this lecture, you won't just know about these echidnas, you'll want to learn more. You will care about every single echidna, every man and child on here. I promise you that much. But if you ever do start to feel worried, there's no need to, because it's my job to be here to hold your hand, and my email inbox is always open. And part of me holding your hand is showing you things like this. Here on the left, we'll see that there's a family tree, but then there are two other ones. What's the difference here? Well, you'll see that on the one on the left, Jordan is married to K'lala. On the one in the middle, however, Jordan is married to Prab Joe. So what happened here? Well, what happened here is that the image on the left is from the Knuckles the Echydna comic book series by Ken Penders, while the image in the middle is from the Archie Comics Sonic encyclopedia by Ian Flynn. This is why we will always be returning to the primary sources for this class, and I'm using this as an example because this is going to be on the test, this family tree, and you need to get these echidnas' names right from the source. I apologize if that was a little bit heavy, so let's just start this off simply now. The extinction of humanity. See, our tale begins with the Zorda. The Zorda are an alien species who found their way to Earth, to our very own planet. And when they made their way there, they sent an ambassador to mingle with the humans on Earth. However, the humans, they did not take kindly to these outsiders, and instead of treating them with dignity, they performed invasive and incredibly painful experiments upon them. Now the Zorda, of course, the Zorda did not take kindly to that, so they swiftly dropped a gene bomb on Earth, decimating life there. However, life did remain in some form or another, and one of those forms is the source of all. Now the source of all is basically a godlike entity, a piece of the universe that's contained within us all. It's a lot like real life, and this is just a basic way to show kids the concept of the universe, of higher powers, of a god of sorts. And I think it's really simple in its brilliance. And as you can see here, we have an image of Princess Sally diving into the pool, into the source of all. And I want to draw your attention to this because in this class, we will not be using altered versions. I know there's an altered version of this out there, but in this class, we do not censor art and we do not censor beauty. So we can see here, though, that other life also sprang forth from the gene bomb, because when the gene bomb hit Earth, it got rid of the humans. And a lot of time passed until Earth came to be known as Mobius. And the creatures residing there were known as Mobians. Now, there are two different types of Mobians. There are the Overlanders, and there are the Furries. Overlanders look a lot like humans, but they aren't the same as humans. They are Mobians, remember? So if I ever refer to something as an Overlander, that is a Mobian. If I refer to something as a furry, that is also a Mobian. And all Mobians stem from humans who were nailed by the gene bomb. And the reason why I bring this up is because the first form of life to come up that evolved faster than any others following the gene bomb is none other than the echidnas. And the echidnas, they were an advanced species who even got further than us humans have in our world. They were able to engage in honest space travel, and they're a fairly private species, probably because they're worried that someone might take that technology from them. And we can't really blame them because, as you will later see, people do try to do that sort of thing to them. And stealing, of course, is wrong. That would be plagiarism. But regardless, this leads us to early echidna society. Now, our first place that we're going to look at in early echidna society is Albion. And what's important to know here is that this is the promised land of the lost tribe and one of the very first places the Echidnas settled in. However, we also have Echidnaopolis, and Echidnaopolis is actually where most of our tales of Echidna valor, bravery, and wisdom are going to take place. As we can see here, we have our first of those tales with Jordan and K'la. Now, Jordan and K'la were early Echidna scientists, and their scientific discoveries led them to a harrowing fact. A white comet was going to strike Echidnaopolis any day now, wiping out all life there, so they needed to do something to avert disaster. So what they did is that they gathered Chaos Emeralds, and those are from the games, I'm sure you recognize those, but they gathered Chaos Emeralds, put them below the earth, and using their power, they raised Echidnaopolis away from the ground and into the sky. In this way, Jordan and K'la allowed Echidna society to survive and thrive up there in the air on the floating island for many generations to come. However, this is not our last tale of two Echidna scientists, because we're going to be moving forward to a tale of two brothers. Now, these two brothers are Edmund and Dimitri, and they are somewhat distant relatives of Jordan and K'la, and much like them, they are Echidna scientists, but they have a different sort of idea than Jordan and K'la did. See, they want to extract the energy from the Chaos Emeralds using a device known as the Chaos Siphon to slowly lower it back down to the ground, and they delivered this petition to the Echidna Council. However, they were denied. And it's here that we need to discuss something that I've seen rear its ugly head way too many times in this sort of class. And that is people ask me the question of, how do I tell these Echidnas apart? How do I know which one's Edmund and which one's Dimitri? So I'm going to show you a foolproof way to always tell these Echidnas apart. Now we have Edmund and Dimitri in this chart, and I'm sure we can both agree that Edmund and Dimitri are Echidnas. However, there are many differences between them as well, such as that Edmund has a stethoscope and glasses, while Dimitri has fancy dreadlocks, so you know how to tell them apart based on these defining features. Let's break it down further here for you. Stethoscope, glasses, that is Edmund. Fancy dreadlocks, that is Dimitri. You can make little songs like that too, just to spice it up. And this will work, like I said, for every Echidna throughout all the generations. So I hope you'll put it to the test right here with this page. We have the chart set out before you. Please put those mental muscles to the test for me, won't ya? There's another example if you need it. Either way, though, Dimitri didn't like that they had been told not to do this, so he went to go do it anyway. But by extracting the energy from the Chaos Emeralds, he became a being known as Enerjack. And Enerjack, with all that chaos power within him, is incredibly powerful and was going to be able to easily take over Echidna society and take over the world. So someone has to stop this before it gets any further, because kids, this is dangerous. So who's going to be the one to stop him? Well, none other than these ants. And see, these ants, you might recognize that picture. They've been with the Echidnas for a while, and they try to help them out and set them on the right path. So when Enerjack creates this Mount Fate using his power and captures Edmund there, the fire ants break in and they free Edmund, and they cause Mount Fate to crumble down on top of Enerjack. But that means that it also crumbles down on Dimitri. And unfortunately, Dimitri was not able to be saved that day. To me, the lesson here is clear. Even the smallest of God's great creatures are capable of being quite high. However, we have more lessons we're going to learn with the banishment of technology. See, after what happened to Dimitri, the Echidnas realized that they needed to make a change, and Edmund spearheaded that change. So they decided to hold a vote, and they agreed that technology would be no more. And here we can actually see Edmund's son Steppenwolf gathering up technology from his cousin Menneker. And yes, Menneker is Dimitri's son. And here we can see him mourning his father's death. However, not all the Echidnas agreed with this edict, and it resulted in the formation of the Dark Legion, a techno cult who was unwilling to give up their technology, even though everyone else had agreed and they'd had a vote on it. So, I don't know. When Edmund learned of this, he was understandably furious, and he was going to go face them. But Christopheles, this wise ant, said, "No, your enemies will use the cloak of secrecy, but you must use the truth as your weapon." And Edmund was able to understand the wisdom in his words, but he was upset. So he just knocked out one of those Dark Legion soldiers, took their garb, and put it upon himself. However, when he went to go do that, one of the Dark Legion soldiers shot him, and he died. And Steppenwolf soon enough found him, and I have no doubt that Steppenwolf could have found himself on a very dangerous path. But fortunately, Christophilus appeared and said, "We will find a better way forward." So what did they do? They trained him physically. But they didn't just train him physically, they trained him mentally. And they didn't just train him mentally, but they trained him meditationally. And here we can see the birth of a guardian. And in doing these things, Steppenwolf became much more powerful than your average Echidna. And I know that's hard to believe because boy, oh boy, can even a regular Echidna sure pack a punch. So, now that he's a guardian, Steppenwolf went to confront the Dark Legion to hopefully find some measure of compromise between them. But this is not just a tale of past losses and past tragedies. No, this is a tale of present sadness as well. Because when Steppenwolf went to face the Dark Legion, he unmasked their leader and learned that it was none other than his cousin Menneker. Menneker, who had seemed to go along with the banishment of technology fine enough. No, he was simply acting. And in reality, he blamed Edmund for his father's death. So Steppenwolf, using his chaos powers, was easily able to disarm the entire Dark Legion, and he banished them into the Twilight Zone where they would not be able to cause any problems any longer, and they would stay there forevermore. Or would they? So, there's an obvious question we need to ask ourselves here. What's the lesson? And the way we're going to answer that is by asking another question. What did the Dark Legion do wrong? Well, what they did wrong is that they wanted to still use technology, they didn't abide by the democratic process, and they used the cloak of secrecy rather than the light of truth. And this leads us to our first piece of Echidna wisdom. If you think that you should enact societal change by lurking in the shadows, you shouldn't. You need to work within the democratic process and face your fears head on. And that leads us to a group of Echidnas who certainly believes that tidbit of wisdom, the Guardians. Now, the Guardians, this is what Steppenwolf was, and many are going to follow in his footsteps, protecting the Chaos Emeralds and the island and the Chaos Chamber. So what are the Guardians? Well, they reside in Haven. And what they are basically, what they do is that they use advanced electronic equipment to protect the Echidna populace. They're a family lineage of rulers who watch over the floating island. And they are a secret society who watches over all Echidnas using impressive surveillance machinery. And here we have another piece of Echidna wisdom. If you find yourself in a situation where you need to choose between bending the rules a little bit to protect your fellow Echidnas, rising up to the occasion, or just not doing that, you need to rise to the occasion, okay? I hope you all take that to heart. And we have a list of Guardians to run through here. Let's do it quick. We have Moonwatcher, the heir of Steppenwolf, his son, the third Guardian. We have Harlan, a descendant of Moonwatcher. As you can see, we're going generation by generation. We have Rembrandt, who is from Harlan's loins, spawned forth from there. And we have Aaron, who I want to spend a moment to pause on here because Aaron's tale, there's something to take from it. See, when Aaron was the Guardian, the Dark Legion actually made their way out of the Twilight Zone. And the reasons why, we don't need to discuss those yet. Basically, what you need to know is that the Dark Legion Menneker and the Overlanders conspired to deal a swift blow to Echidna life using missiles. So Aaron, knowing that this was about to happen, he rode on those missiles away from the Echidnas and blew them up mid-flight. But in the process, he lost his life. And here we have Echidna wisdom number 3. Sometimes you'll think that it's worth putting your life on the line for something, that you need to do that. And when that moment arises, please don't. And now we've reached this page where you can see a whole bunch of different Guardians, and I could spend the rest of this lecture going through each and every one of them with you, but I won't. I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten about this. People asking, who's this Echidna? Who's that Echidna? Did you read it? It's not enough to show up to the lecture. You need to get your nose to the grindstone and read it. This isn't a conversation I would need to be having. This shouldn't be necessary. As much as I want to, I can't hold your hand through this. This is the last time we'll be mentioning this, okay? Thank you. All right. Now, a tale of two pocket dimensions. Here we've jumped ahead to another guardian, but we aren't going to be discussing them first because we have a different sort of problem we got to get to here. See, way back when the Echidnas lifted Angel Island up into the sky, they were at war with these dingoes. And when they lifted the island, they also took the dingoes with them. And the dingoes, they were upset about this, upset they'd been displaced. But frankly, I don't know what their problem is, because it was either that or get wiped out by the comet. So really, the Echidnas were doing them a major favor. And these dingoes, they've continued to be a problem for the Echidnas, and as we can see here, they're even stealing the pinnacle of Echidna technology and shooting it right back at them with these nukes. But fortunately, the current Guardian Hawking was able to protect Echidna society by stopping these nukes from hitting anyone, but there remained a problem. Radioactive dust. So Hawking had to come up with a plan. How was he going to protect everyone from the dingoes' foolish mistake? And what he did is that he used this device called the Hyperzone Projector to create pocket dimensions, put the Echidnas in one, put the dingoes in another, and get them away from the radioactive activity. However, this solution didn't last forever because far in the future, Dr. Robotnik created a weapon called the Ultimate Annihilator, and when it was used, it created issues with space and time, and these pocket dimensions began to break down. So Hawking had to do something. Now keep in mind, this is many, many years later. Hawking by now is an old Echidna, but still strong and still wise. And this strong and wise Echidna was left with an exceptionally difficult decision. Does he move the dingoes to the Echidna's land or the Echidnas to the dingoes' land? See, because only one of these realities could be maintained, one of them had to be destroyed and the life of way that was cultivated there had to go. And in all his mercy, Hawking made the correct decision, sparing the dingoes from their own folly and moving them to the Echidna's prosperous land. In the process, however, he also utilized his life force, and he fell into a comatose state. However, this is far from the first time that two worlds have collided, because in the past, we have the tale of Tobor to consider. Now we're back to when Hawking originally split up the dingoes and Echidnas, and he had a son named Tobor. Tobor is the Guardian right now, and during his tenure as the Guardian, the Dark Legion returned, helmed by a Moratori Rex. Now, nothing much has changed with the Dark Legion over all these years. They still want to use technology, even though the other Echidnas, they abided by the democratic process. So, this results in a battle, a historic battle, a battle repeated as though a rhyme forged from forgotten breaths, as the descendants of Menneker and the descendants of Steppenwolf face one another. But there are no winners in war. None. And they were eventually crushed beneath the rubble caused by their battle. Still, both of them survived, but that was not known by other Echidnas. And eventually Hawking went there and saw this battered and beaten Echidna and assumed it was his son, because Tobor and Moratori Rex, they look very similar. And in this manner, Moratori Rex was able to pretend to be Tobor for many years to come, and all that Tobor could do was weakly watch on as this false Tobor took his place. Now, a question you might have here is, even if they look similar, how couldn't he tell them apart? But I just want to remind you to return to slide 24. And when you use that to break it down, you'll quickly realize how these Echidnas were able to make this mistake, and all will be abundantly clear. But setting that aside, our next tale is also about truths and falsehoods with the Mitre. Now, before Dredon and Kael'laa had lifted Angel Island into the sky, there was an Echidna named Arrakis, and Arrakis didn't agree with this idea of abandoning the ground down below, so he actually led a group of Echidnas away from Echidnopolis. They abandoned their technology, and they came to be known as the Lost Tribe. And along this journey, Arrakis had an encounter with none other than the Ancient Walkers, and the Ancient Walkers, they're a group of Mobazoids who have achieved something akin to godhood, and he had a vision from them, telling him that he needed to lead the Lost Tribe to the Promised Land, and this is where he became the Mitre. And he's just one of many wrapped up in their prophecies. Here we can actually see the Chosen One, but that right there is a tale for another time. But the Guardians are also wrapped up in this prophecy, and we've actually jumped pretty far ahead, a bit after Hawking's time, to a Guardian named Janelle Lee. And what's important to note here is that she is Aether's mother. And Aether, he was meant to become a Guardian just like she had been, but he had a vision from the Ancient Walkers, and the Ancient Walkers told him that he needed to be the next Mitre and lead the Promised Tribe. So, understanding how important following a vision is, he left. And this led to his mother, Janelle Lee, being Guardian for longer than she thought, and here we can actually see Aether's son, Sabre, coming to tell him, hey, Janelle Lee, she's not long for this world, she's going back to the Chaos Force, can you please return? But Aether, he couldn't just leave his post for something like that, so he stayed behind, even if it did cause some problems. But he knew that he had other things to do, but he was not always rewarded for his faith. But he's not the last person we're going to discuss who experienced hardship, because now we have the prophecy of destruction. Now, back with the Guardians, away from the Mitre, Aether's son Sabre had taken up the mantle of Guardian, and he had a son who also took up that mantle the way that it had always been the tradition. And that son's name was Locke. Now, Locke was privy to a precognitive vision of events yet to unfold, or perhaps a dream induced by the Ancient Walkers. But much like his grandfather Aether, he knew that he couldn't ignore this, that it was something he needed to take seriously. And though his wife weakly attempted to comfort him, Locke knew what he had seen, and that it was more than a dream, and that if he didn't act, the world would end. These are the stakes we're dealing with here. So what Locke did was he took the egg of his unborn son, and correctly, might I add, he used this radiation bath embedded with the full force of the Chaos Emeralds to make his son more powerful than any Guardian we'd previously seen. And he did this, cementing within his son a destiny, the destiny of the savior of the world, who, yes, had given up some freedom here, not by his own decision, but because it needed to happen, and Locke understood that. So what was the name of the son? His son who would save the world from doom. Well, his son's name was K'nox the Echydnya. Before we dive deeper into this Guardian who we finally managed to reach, we need to discuss some details pertaining to Knuckles' name, and that requires that we go back to the tale of the Knuckles clan. You no doubt remember Albion, one of the two major homelands of the Echidnas. Long ago, a group of Echidnas known as the Knuckles clan took to the sea from Albion to explore and discover new lands. And on their treks, they soon found themselves in a heated battle with the native inhabitants of one of these places. However, the Knuckles clan, they didn't all unilaterally agree on how to handle this. See, there was Pacamac, who led the warrior faction, and he wanted to just get rid of these inhabitants, push them into the dirt. This is our place now, Echidna power. However, the scholars and laborers of the group, they said no, and they left. Pacamac was furious that this had happened, and he knew that he needed a new source of power. After all, he just lost so much manpower with those Echidnas. But where was he gonna get it? Well, his daughter Tikal, she had discovered this ancient runes, these mystic runes, where these Chow resided. And the Chow, they're pretty cute there. But there's something else too. They're powerful. They're extremely powerful. And her father soon wanted to use their chaos power, the power of the emeralds residing there in those mystic runes, to power up during a war. However, the Chow had no interest in this. And because of Pacamac's meddling, they were forced to act. And I can barely watch this right now. They hurt all these Echidnas. And the name of this creature, I'm sure it's something you recognize. That's Perfect Chaos from the video game Sonic Adventure released for the Dreamcast. That's Chaos. And next up, we have some other characters from the games that you Sonic fans are no doubt frothing at the mouth to discuss. Oh, this got mixed up. This is supposed to be in the Mobius lecture. I'll fix that up later. These are the characters. The Knuckles Chaotix. Let's go through each one of these guys. First, Vector the Crocodile. This is Knuckles' main man. Second, Heavy and Bomb. These ones, they help Knuckles on a mission. Third, Mighty the Armadillo, who I really love this guy. I love Mighty. I hope we can all find ourselves a friend like him one day, because if you read these stories, you'll quickly understand that he is a fantastic guy. Just a real great guy. And a testament to that is our fourth buddy here, Ray. Ray, he has a stutter, and Mighty is just such a good friend to him. Like look at him. I love it. Fifth, Charmy B. He's the bee's knees. That much is for sure. And he has a really nice wife. I like her a lot. Finally, Espio the Chameleon, and I have no doubt that this image speaks for itself. But now, we have another character who isn't from the games. Not from the games, but probably more exciting than that. Julie-Su, the girlfriend of Knuckles. Needless to say, folks, I'm a fan of pink today. Now, just like Julie-Su herself, her backstory has many moving parts, and none of those parts move more than the Dark Legion. See, she's part of the Dark Legion. She was from the Twilight Zone, from all that silly business, and she is the daughter of the Grand Master of the Dark Legion at a point in time, Luger, who is also the son of Morituri Rex, aka the False Tobor, and his second wife is Mary Sue. And she is the product of that second marriage to Mary Sue. However, Luger ultimately put her in the guardianship of Simon the Echidna. And Simon the Echidna, he was second in command to Luger. But things got tricky when the children from Luger's first marriage, her half-brother Kragok and her half-sister Lianda, wiped her memory so that she believed Simon was her dad. And they did this because they didn't want Julie-Su getting involved in their affairs. Later, though, they changed their mind about the mind wipe, and they wiped her memory again so that she believed she was simply a generic Dark Legion soldier. Eventually, Julie-Su does remember these details about her past, confronts Simon, and remembers what she needs to remember. But yeah, these are the basic details of her backstory. Lianda she is... But now I'm a fan of Red today because it is time for Knuckles the Echydna! Yes! Yes! Okay, now Knuckles. Knuckles had a lonely past where he was trained by his father, Locke, to properly fulfill his role. But he was well loved by his family, and how couldn't you love that little guy? Until, of course, his father partook in the Guardians' time-honored tradition of the previous Guardians, casting himself into the wall of flames in front of his son, leaving him behind with the belief that he had died. And this is necessary because it leaves the child with the belief that, with their parent gone, they need to work harder, and that they'll be spurned forward to become the best guardian and make the best decisions they could possibly make. It's tough, but it makes perfect sense. Now, despite this, Knuckles did end up having many friends, and a bunch of these friends are the freedom fighters. And, him and Sonic, they have a relationship of highs and lows. And their first confrontation occurred when Sonic trespassed on Knuckles' island. They had another confrontation when Sonic trespassed on Knuckles' island. Then there's Sonic here attempting to pick a fight with Knuckles, which he shouldn't be doing. Then there's the time that Sonic and Knuckles both became robots and battled because Sonic stupidly got himself roboticized. And there is that time when Sonic seemingly murdered his childhood friend, Princess Sally, and Knuckles had to get in there and beat him. He had to beat the crap out of him. Now, as we all know, though, having friends can be both a strength and a weakness. And that becomes abundantly clear when Knuckles' Chaotix are ripped away from him by unknown figures. As it turns out, though, the figure who did this, that is Archimedes. And Archimedes is Knuckles' fire ant guide. You'll remember that, how the Guardians often had these fire ants. Of course, this means that Archimedes, the fire ants, they would never hurt an Echidna's friends. So they're perfectly fine here. They're doing good. But here's the thing. Archimedes isn't the only one looking out for Knuckles from above, because his father, Locke, is still watching over him, making sure he's properly prepared for the challenges set out before him. Locke's in haven, making sure it all goes well, basically. And it's a good thing, too, because his father is there for him when Enerjack returns. That's right, Enerjack from all the way back with Mitre and Edmund. And he comes up from the rubble of Mount Fate after eventually absorbing enough power, after building it up over generations and generations. He's ready for a big fight. And Knuckles right here is getting the brunt of that. Very unfortunate time to be the Guardian, am I right? So he's fighting him, and he's doing a good job. Knuckles is a strong fellow, but he's a young Echidna. He's not prepared to go it alone. So Locke saves the day. He saves the day by thrusting Enerjack up into space in a rocket where he won't be able to cause problems anymore. And Locke does that because is it not a father's job to look after their son? Wow. However, this is not the last problem that Knuckles is going to encounter that has its roots in the past. So now we have another problem with these frickin' dingoes again. And okay, basically what's happening here is that this is taking place at a point in time when the pocket dimensions are breaking down and Hawking is going to need to make a decision. That's right, we're back here. And as you can see, Knuckles is actually seeing his mother appearing through the breaks in space and time. And of course, Hawking is going to decide to merge these societies. This is also where Knuckles actually meets Julie Sue, just a beautiful moment to look back on here. And there he is, beating some dingoes. That's the way we do it here. There's a dingo with its filthy mitts on his mother. And he's punching a dingo. There we go. Get rid of those frickin' dingoes, Knuckles. That's what I like to see. Anyway, of course, he defeats the dingoes. He gets to be with his mother again. And they get to have a talk. They have some catching up to do. However, things are a little bit awkward. And you want to know why? That's because Locke's wife, she abandoned him. She abandoned Knuckles. And why did she do that? Well, it's really simple. She felt that Knuckles' duties as a guardian were taking too high a priority and she wasn't getting a say in her son's life. What did she expect? I don't know. This is how it's always been. A guardian is a guardian is a guardian. A simple case of her not knowing her place. And this goes on until she actually ends up getting remarried to this Echidna. And their name is Winnie. What the heck? Walt? Walt's their name. And a byproduct of this whole affair is that she has a child named Nikapion Mace. And Nikapion Mace is her child from Waldo on the previous slide. And you're going to want to know about both of them for the test. Their names are important. But soon enough, though, Enerjack somehow returned from space. Him and Knuckles fight, and he's just as powerful as he's always been. Enerjack is a beast, and he discombobulates Knuckles down to his primary atoms. But the Ancient Walkers, they say no, and they protect him. But the reason for his return is revealed. It was all part of a plot from Mammoth Mogul, who used the mystical Sword of Acorn to steal Enerjack's chaos power, rendering him nothing more than an old and weak Echidna named Dimitri. So Dimitri's back. Enerjack is gone. And this pernicious pachyderm is about to pack a punch, because he's got Chaos Force on his side now. But despite that potent power, Knuckles and the Chosen One, they are able to defeat him. Who is that Chosen One? Well, that's a tale for another time. But there is a tale for this time, and that tale is of the Days of Fury. Days of Fury, these are cataclysmic events throughout the history of Echidnas. And this right here, this is an image of the Lost Tribe having an unfortunate encounter with a Day of Fury. So Knuckles, who is currently walking around with Ether when this happens, obviously he's not going to put up with it, so he goes to rescue the Echidnas. But the fire can't even touch him. And Ether's power, it is able to rescue each and every member of this Lost Tribe, lifting them up and away from the magma. That's how you do it, kids. That's how you do it as an Echidna. But after Ether does that, see, Ether had a reason for getting Knuckles to travel with him. And that's that Ether knew that his part in this play was finished. He was no longer going to be the Mitre. He had done what he needed to do, and someone else needed to finish guiding them to the promised land. From here, Knuckles, he leads that tribe. He leads them well, but see, his friend Yanar here, Yanar, who is basically a de facto leader to the Lost Tribe, then Ather's gone, they get captured. The Lost Tribe gets captured in Snottingham. But Knuckles and his friends, including Rubble the Hedgehog up there, a very, very cool fellow, they are able to rescue the Lost Tribe, no big deal, and keep on their merry way. But something strange happens here, and that is that Rubble the Hedgehog gets possessed by God and leads them toward the Promised Land. But there's an obvious problem with this picture. The Promised Land, it's across the water. How are they going to get there? They don't have a boat. Well, they're going to get there using a little bit of faith. Because Knuckles the Echidna is going to lead them across the water, not with technology, but by going back to the source. He's going to do it by walking. He walks on water. And after they walk across that water, what do they reach? Well, they reach Albion. That was the promised land of the Lost Tribe. You should remember that from way back on the Albion slide. But after Knuckles completes this task, there are new problems set up before him because Dimitri has returned, now with a cybernetic body, because he's been outfitted by the Dark Legion who found him, and he is their new leader. And the Dark Legion is going to use this tense political climate with the Dingoes to their advantage. So this is as good a time as any to discuss this. What do the Dingoes want? Well, what they want is they want homes, because when they moved over to Echinopolis, they didn't have any, and they are being wildly impatient with the Echidnas. They won't even give them, a few months. They can't stand that. They need to settle down as far as I'm concerned. But regardless, the Dark Legion, they use this to their advantage, and we see the likes of Leon Da here beginning the Dark Legion's takeover. So part of this political takeover is that the Dark Legion brainwashes a highly respected Echidna named Pravda, and they have Pravda say, hey, I have a good idea here. I'm going to back Benedict as the new leader of the Echidnas. And of course, Benedict has some ties to the Dark Legion that we'll be getting to. And at the same time, the Dark Legion works to dismantle the Brotherhood of Guardians. By now, I'm sure looking at these images, you've noticed many, many parallels to real life. In fact, I'd argue the story is just like real life. And if you aren't able to see those parallels, well, I encourage you to look at the top left of this page. And here we have Echidna Wisdom number 4. Never forget the past. Anyway, Echidnas and Dingoes are captured, and it's revealed that Benedict is now a robot. And when that's revealed, that ultimately foils the Dark Legion's plans. Now all the Echidnas know that this guy was a puppet, that he was being used by the techno cult, and they aren't going to have it. But after this happens, since the Brotherhood of Guardians was captured and Knuckles was captured, and they're kind of in the same place, Knuckles actually spots his father, Locke. And Locke, understandably, isn't quite sure if Knuckles is ready to see him, if Knuckles has learned enough to gain that access to his father. So he runs off, but Knuckles chases him and catches up to him, and he and Locke get to have a discussion. And Knuckles, I love the guy, but he has some trouble here, right? He has some trouble understanding why his father abandoned him, why he pretended to die on that wall of flames. And I can get it. He's wrapped up in the emotions of this, but obviously Locke is able to talk to him and tell him, like, I'm in the right. I did the right thing. I had to make you a savior for the world because you need to stop this prophecy of destruction that I saw. And he is able to connect with his son. And they're able to, they hold one another. Sorry. I love you too. Speaking of the love of a father and son, speaking of love amongst echidnas, next up we have some romance for my romance fans out there, right? Some big boy romance. And I'm excited for it. Because this is the Soul Touch. Now, looking at this image, I got a question to ask you. Do you remember puberty? Because I do. And we're about to remember and feel it even harder with the Soul Touch. Now, if you're wondering what exactly the soul touch is, we need look no further than Locke's words of wisdom to his son. Because see, Knuckles has been interacting with Julie Sue for a while, and they aren't an item yet. They haven't dated. They haven't decided what they really are. Then that will they, won't they kind of stage, that exciting place that we all are at sometimes with our relationships. And Knuckles is struggling with those pesky hormones that are coursing through his body, just like gasoline. But of course, his father is there to be responsible and give him the talk. I'm assuming you've all had the talk, so I don't need to go over that with you. If you don't know what I'm referring to, my office doors are always open. Regardless, though, this is where he explains the soul touch. Have you ever heard of a soulmate? It's kind of a similar thing, but instead of your souls mating, your souls they're touching. This is something that happens with echidnas. They see the one they're supposed to be with. They feel it. They feel it in their heart. Knuckles is discovering that Julie Sue is the one to touch his soul. And I think we can all remember having this kind of conversation with my dad. Assuming that we were lucky enough to have found him, of course. Needless to say, though, puberty is not a smooth ride. It is bumpy, all right. And Knuckles is on the biggest bump, and boy, oh boy, is Vector experiencing the blowback. But boys will be boys. When they've got things stirring in those nether regions, they tend to go at it sometimes, right? They tend to grab each other by the throat, choke that turkey. But Knuckles is ultimately able to find strength within himself, and he's able to channel the courage of his father, and he asks out Julie Sue. And you can see that strat. You can see that confidence. You know why? You know why he's confident? Because she says yes. Yes. Woo! From here, Knuckles is able to make up with his friends like Vector, but at the same time, remember that even the soul touch isn't without its trouble. Because Locke's wife here, she would say ex-wife, but Locke's wife, she is currently talking with Locke. They're talking about Knuckles, and she is being a hell of a nag. And the important thing to remember here is, love is great, love is good, but marriage is work. Marriage is work, and if one party's just giving up on it, I don't know what the other one is supposed to do. Okay, but here we go. Here's Knuckles. This is the good part right now. He's enjoying that pink glow of love along with his friends, and I think that's really beautiful. That's something that we should celebrate. But the other side of love is hate, and we're about to experience its full throttle as a certain Monk the Monkey returns. Now, Monk is a real problem. See, when Knuckles was a young lad on that island, almost alone, just getting trained, Monk committed criminal activity, theft, and he stole from Knuckles. And Locke and the rest of the Guardians, they had no choice after this monster touched his son's yo-yo. They had no choice. They had to get rid of him. So the Guardians went, they picked him up when he couldn't move, and they threw him off the island. They threw him off Angel Island. No more of your monkey business around here, dickhead. And they had to do this, right? They had no other choice. But, of course, Monk eventually returned, and Monk, he was angry. He didn't understand, even now as a grown man, that he had done something wrong. So he went to go attack Knuckles to get revenge. But this was not a smooth fight between them. This hunter appeared. This hunter who wanted to hunt both Monk and Knuckles, who wanted to go after echidnas and kill them. He gathers both of them, puts collars on their neck, and allows them to run away for a little bit, because to him, the hunt is only fun if his prey has a chance to escape. So now Knuckles and Monk, they need to work together to stop this hunter. And they put their differences aside. But even though they put those differences aside, Monk is shot by the hunter, and no one's able to save them. Of course, Knuckles and the Brotherhood and all those guys, they managed to defeat the hunter, but it's too late for Monk. However, there's no time to dwell on his death, because the Dark Legion is back again, with Grandfather Matthias warning the Brotherhood of their return. And all of this is beneath the backdrop of dingo warmongering, because they're still at that again. And the Dark Legion here, they do something crazy. They activate the quantum beam, And what that does is it shoots at Angel Island. It shoots at all the Echidnas there. And it moves them into another dimension where they won't be able to get in the way of the Dark Legion's conquest anymore. Fortunately, though, Knuckles is able to escape using his power, using gliding, might I remind you. And not all Echidnas can glide, okay? He can do that because of what Locke did to his egg as a baby. So this is all part of him being basically the chosen one. And he flies away, and he escapes. But he is left here alone. However, ever the godly Echidna, he has visions of Aether, and Aether tells him what he needs to do. He needs to follow the power of this gem, the Guiding Star gem, and go where he needs to go to do what he needs to do. And that means that he has to go to Albion. And in Albion, he encounters this roboticized general. And see, this man, this roboticized general, he was a good guy before he was roboticized. But the Albion people, they've been harmed by him, and they're scared of him. And they want to destroy him. It's not worth the risk to try to de-roboticize him, make him normal again. However, Knuckles is unwilling to see a good man robbed of his life. And this is where Knuckles becomes something greater. He becomes Green Knuckles. This is it, folks. This is what Locke worked for. The end sum of his pain and suffering and commitment to higher ideals. This is the chosen one he created. See, Knuckles is currently exploding with the power of Chaos Force, his body wrapped in green. And when other Echidnas would seek to take a good man's life, he is there to say, no, we don't need to worry anymore, because even problematic villains just crumble before him. And with a mere word, his power is such that he could bring civilizations to their knees. However, the people in Albion aren't a fan of that. In fact, they're pretty worried. Their leader, Galena, she's particularly frightened of his power. And when he leaves Albion, they determine that Green Knuckles is just too strong and that they need to capture him. So they hire Nick and Knack the Weasels to capture him. And they find Knuckles when Knuckles has gone to visit Charmy Bee and his wonderful wife, really great lady, Saffron. And they leverage Saffron and Charmy Bee's life against Knuckles, forcing him to come along with them back to Albion, where even the likes of Yunar, the promised tribe that Knuckles led, even they are afraid of this power he has. As far as I'm concerned, cowardly, but that remains. But their plan here is to extract the Chaos Force from Knuckles, and they do this despite the knowledge that it's most likely going to kill Knuckles if it works. So Charmy Bee and Saffron, they aren't willing to watch their friend suffer like this, so they go in, they help him, and Knuckles is able to fight back against the Chaos Siphon, against this power that would take away his power. But after this happens, he goes rogue, and in a way, Galena and the Albion people, they have created the monster they were so afraid of. So Knuckles is lost and confused, and the Chosen One is enlisted to put a stop to him. Aether gathers that guy, the Chosen One, and they fight. They get into battle to try to calm Green Knuckles down, but Green Knuckles is he is strong, and he beats the Chosen One into the dirt. But there is a question there, which is, why wasn't the Chosen One able to stop him? What happened there? And, well, that's a tale for another time. But still, regardless of this, Knuckles needs to figure out what to do. And after a spiritual meeting from a spiritual Hawking, he finds himself in the Dark Legion's base of operations, and it's there that he strikes up a deal. If he joins the Dark Legion, Mitre will bring the other Echidnas back from their own little pocket dimension thing that they're in, and teach Knuckles how to use these powers so that he can help people and no one has to get hurt. And by taking that deal, Knuckles has joined the dark side. Now, if you're having trouble understanding why Mitre would know how to control Green Knuckles' power, 2 words, Chaos Force. 2 more words, Chaos Siphon. If you need more words, well, all will be revealed by reading over this page. However, ultimately, Dimitri isn't able to reverse the effects of the quantum beam that sent all these echidnas into another dimension. So now Knuckles is left trying to pick up the pieces using his green Knuckles power. And he goes back in time to change the timeline so that the other echidnas will have never been blasted by the Dark Legion in the first place. However, no matter how many times he tries, no matter what he does, no matter how much effort he puts in, something always goes wrong when he tries to change it. And eventually he's left with one choice, and that is to just reverse the effects of the quantum beam brute force using his chaos force powers. So he does that, and he manages to save the echidnas. So he's able to see his family again, but he's still advocating for the Dark Legion to rejoin Echidna society. Needless to say, the likes of his mother, of Locke's wife, doesn't even attempt to understand his position. But Knuckles is strong in his convictions, and he even appears before the court to advocate for the Dark Legion and for Dimitri. However, though Remington tries to stop him, an Echidna shoots at Dimitri, and Dimitri only survives because Knuckles takes a bullet for him. Fortunately, though, Knuckles is, of course, okay because he's green. He's got his green power. But I just want to take a moment to pause on this interaction because we have this Echidna here. So what's going on there? Well, this Echidna, her name is Janica. And Janica has come from the future because she knows that Knuckles is supposed to be shot on this day. But there's something strange there because in her timeline, Knuckles actually dies. So she's not just from the future, she's from another dimension. And basically she fails here, which leads to us learning that this is actually Knuckles' daughter. And her real name is LARA-SU, but this LARA-SU is from a different dimension where Knuckles didn't die and instead became a dictator. But that's all another story. You don't need to worry about it too much. You just need to know that that's going on in the background. However, back in the Prime Dimension, Dimitri is being allowed into Echidna society after seeing what unfolded, but all is not as it seemed. Because you remember that Echidna who raised arms against Dimitri, don't you? Well, that wasn't just some random Echidna with a grudge. That Echidna was hired by Lian Da, who wants to usurp control of the Dark Legion from our friend here, Dimitri. And Dimitri he's not doing well, right? They had to make him into a cyborg just to keep him alive. And this results in a perfect opportunity for a villain like Mammoth Mogul to return to steal Dimitri's life, or to at least use it as some pretty good leverage. And here actually we can see something. This is Mammoth Mogul interacting with this dingo named Harry. Now, Harry is, I really like Harry. He's one of the good ones. And unfortunately, he's put into the hospital by Mammoth Mogul. But Green Knuckles, having learned how to control these powers better because of his deal with the Dark Legion, is able to heal Harry and save his life. And from there, he goes to confront Mammoth Mogul, who could end Dimitri's life with a push of a button. And of course, this was all part of Mammoth Mogul's goals. He wanted to have an opportunity to fight Knuckles so that he could steal his powers. But the Mammoth thrusts his grimy fingers into his dirty bag of tricks and turns on the room, the device in the room, which is a giant chaos siphon designed to drain Knuckles of his abilities and take them. And after this, Knuckles is dead. Knuckles dies. Of course, Knuckles' friends, they feel similarly to how all of us knuckleheads feel learning about this. And their sadness is palpable. I particularly feel for Julie Sue here. I mean, she was like just about to reach reasoning age, and then this happens, so the soul touch it works in mysterious ways sometimes. And while they're having his funeral, Knuckles is going to the Chaos Force, just as the other Guardians have before him, into the afterlife. And here Knuckles has a confrontation with Aurora, an Echidna goddess of sorts, an ascended being. And Knuckles says things here that a lot of us would probably say when we go to the Pearly Gates. He's wondering why. Why can't he spend more time with his friends? It wasn't his time yet. It's not right. While he's arguing there, on Mobius, things are not going well. Sonic is currently inside of a mech fighting the Zorda, who have returned from space, and everyone, even Robotnik and the Freedom Fighters, have joined forces to stop the progress of this quantum dial, which will destroy the world. So Knuckles is able to understand that this is going on, and he knows that he needs to go back to life to help protect his friends. So he talks with Aurora, and he talks with Aether, who's also in the afterlife now, and he tells them that he wants to come back to life. Unfortunately, he reappears just in the nick of time to stop the Zorda's assault and provide his friends with the opportunity to fight back. However, in the process, Knuckles has given up his place among the Chaos Force and lost his powers, and you should be able to tell that here. Knuckles is no longer green, a great visual way of showing that something has changed. And this is something of a passing of the torch from him to Sonic, as he understands that for once, Sonic will need to save the day without any further assistance from him. So, Sonic fights, and he fights hard, but he ultimately sacrifices himself to stop the Zorda. And the statue is erected in his honor, and he will be remembered into the past and the future. Speaking of the future, though, we have future Knuckles. Now, Knuckles has a wife, Julie Sue. He got married to his soul touch mate. That's great. And they are living the life with his daughter, LARA-SU, who I need to remind you, this is LARA-SU of the Prime Dimension of the story we've been talking about this whole time, not some other dimension. This is his daughter. However, parenting is not easy, and Knuckles is struggling with his daughter because LARA-SU, she doesn't know the terror of being a guardian, and she wants to be one. She wants to follow in her father's footsteps because, I mean, how couldn't you respect him that much, right? But Knuckles doesn't see why she should need to do this anymore. He feels that the Guardians are this relic of the past, and he doesn't want to go through putting her through what he went through. But there are other troubles in paradise as the fabric of the universe is being chipped away at. And it's being chipped away at because of Sonic. See, Sonic, throughout the story, has spent a lot of time going to different dimensions, doing different things, traveling between zones. And doing that so much has resulted in the very fabric of the universe to break down. So Knuckles and Sonic, they go to the Tachyon Chamber, one of Robotnik's devices he never really got to use, and Sonic is going to do his best to piece the universe back together properly. However, just as Sonic is going, something goes wrong, and he's gone. Without a doubt, another piece of Echidna wisdom applies here, from Pericles. Though our destinies are etched in stone, various are the means used in carving. And finally, we have Locke. Now, basically what we learned during this section is that before we reached future Knuckles, who's 25 years after the events of the main story that we've mostly been covering, between then and now, unfortunately, Locke gets ill and he is dying. And Knuckles goes to go see him, goes to visit his father. And he and his father have had their differences, but in this moment, Locke has some clarity, and he's able to understand that yes, it was important to make Knuckles into the savior for the world. But at the end of the day, what was most important is that this was his son, and he loved him, and at times he could have done a better job of looking after what his son wanted. And Locke passes away there. And so Knuckles is able to use this memory of his father, of his words to him as he was dying, where he said that, Knuckles, he loved him and he should have put him first more often. And Knuckles is able to learn from that relationship and from those experiences and become the best dad he can possibly be to his daughter. Which leads us to his daughter, LARA-SU. See, this is a story that isn't complete yet, because the last piece of it is the LARA-SU Chronicles. Now, this will take place in the 25 years later segment of the story where the fabric of the universe is breaking down. It's still in the works. It's not finished yet, but it's on the way. And fortunately, I do have some little tidbits for you because Ken Penders on Twitter has confirmed that we'll begin with the destruction of Mobius. So buckle up your seatbelts, folks. No doubt if it begins that way, it's going to be a wild ride. But there's an important detail here that we still need to discuss, because this is where Knuckles the Echidna becomes K'nox the Echydnya. Yes! Yes! This is what we've been waiting for, because in this story, in the LARA-SU Chronicles, Knuckles isn't just Knuckles anymore. No, now he goes by the name K'nox the Echidna, because it's revealed that the Echidnas are an alien race, and it's just... we're here, folks. Yes, woo, yes. Now, this is your homework for today. I want you to go through this without looking back at the notes. I just want you to go through and write down the names of each of these echidnas. Just fill in this family tree for me here. We even have a word bank. It's not too difficult. If you're paying attention, I have no doubt you should have no issue filling this in. And this is for marks. Okay, and it's the honor system. I expect you to be as honorable as the echidnas. If somehow you aren't confident in that, though, you know, we're nice here. And you can fill out this little bonus crossword puzzle for bonus points. But now, I want to leave you with something important to remember. Always go back to primary sources. If it's something like the Complete Sonic Encyclopedia, not true. If it's something like the Sonic the Hedgehog comic book series, it might be, but you want to be careful. Meanwhile, if it's one of these things highlighted in red, you can always stand confident that Rad Red is the way to go. Besides, if you ever get lost throughout this, then know that you can always come to me, because I will be your ultimate...
Not so fast, Mr. Lowart.
Wait, is that...
Worry not, young Knuckles, for I am here.
Can't be.
I am the source of all.
Thank you, Ken Penders, and thank you to all you students for coming to this class. I hope to see you next semester. Bye-bye for now.